welcome to our webinar, Job Search Strategies for 50 Plus, which is part of our Get That Job webinar series here at the Champaign Public Library. My name is Jordan Neal, and I am the career librarian here at the library, so thank you all for joining us. So for the latest library news and updates, we invite you to visit our website, champaign.org, or you can follow us on social media. You can email us at librarian@champaign.org or chat with us just by visiting the homepage of our website. Moving on to a couple of Zoom features available to you that might help during this webinar. There are some icons at the bottom of your Zoom screen or at the top, depending on your device. On the far left, you have the options that control your sound or your speaker. And then moving to the right and within the center of the window includes a chat and raise hand option. You could use these options to ask us questions or share any comments. I believe Teresa will be inviting those questions and comments throughout the presentation. You can enter your question to the chat or raise your hand and we can unmute you so you can speak and ask your question. I'd like to remind everyone that our webinars, most of our webinars are recorded and uploaded to the library's YouTube channel. And then finally, I'd like to introduce our presenter, Teresa Jones. We have Teresa's entire bio available on our website, but Teresa is an Associate State Director of Advocacy and Outreach for AARP Illinois in Springfield with a focus on home and community-based services, caregiving, the census, and livable communities. And this is in addition to her efforts towards education and community outreach. So Teresa, thank you for joining us this evening, and I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you for having me. I got the call and we kind of missed each other a couple of times, but we finally got together and I am so excited that we did. So this evening, we're going to talk about job search strategies for 50 plus. So now that doesn't mean if you're younger than 50, that this does not apply to you. Far from it. So whether you're exploring a new career or searching for a new opportunity, that job market, it's competitive for everyone at every age. So we're glad that you're joining us today for this evening, I should say, for this discussion about updating your resume, addressing age bias, and promoting your candidacy for employment. So we can start. Let's just dig in. So I may or I may not be telling you anything that you don't already know. So, but if that's the case, this is just reinforcement. But if this is news to you, well, I've got a lot to share. So hopefully this is not just me talking and talking and talking. If you have questions, please, as she said before, Jordan said, put it in the chat or just stop me and ask. Please ask questions or feel free to add your knowledge. So you probably have something that somebody else might be thinking or possibly even wanted to ask. We're just old friends getting together for an evening chat. Now, are you wondering how do you compete in this new and changing job market? Well, I'm glad you asked. You change right along with it. The job market, it may not look the same as it did a decade ago, maybe even 5 years ago, as a matter of fact, but that doesn't mean that you can't fit in and find a job. You have to be open-minded, flexible. Those are two of the most critical components to anyone's success. People who are able to adjust, to change, normally find success. So also, why don't you just remember that you're not alone? You are part of the fastest growing segment of the American workforce, millions strong. So you're smart, remember that. You're strong, and you keep striving for your place in today's job market. A good job search plan, it's much more than just filling out applications. It's much more than sending out numerous resumes. It usually takes networking. Surprise, right? Networking. So, network? Well, you contact people who know about job openings. Start talking to people who know about your job search. You never know who you might meet that could possibly help you. Again, stay open-minded. This can open up opportunities that you never knew about. Do your research. Yeah. Research job positions. Connect with people and organizations that can help you find a job. Target your job search. What do I mean by targeting your job search? Well, look for local open positions. Now I'm just assuming that you're looking locally. Now you might be looking for a job in St. Louis or somewhere. So then that would be where you would target your job search, obviously. Use your time wisely by targeting employers that you know that have job openings. Now have a few employers that you'd like to look for, but write that down. That's a great place to start looking because it's better to focus on employers that you're interested in first. So create a target list of employers. Begin your research by visiting their company website. Target employers that may be seeking employees with your type of skill, and also that may possibly offer the things that are most important to you. So are you looking for full-time? Or are you looking for part-time? Don't be afraid to ask businesses if they have job openings that aren't posted. You may go there, I said earlier, apply at places where you know that there are job openings. But once you're there, there's nothing wrong with saying, do you have some jobs that may be coming up, or do you have something that's not posted? You may be surprised. The holiday season, which we're on right now, it provides great opportunities for part-time work. Be flexible about the times that you will work. Now, you may be asked to work on weekends. Do not agree to if you already know that that's a deal breaker. You'd be surprised how many people, because they want to get their foot in the door, they'll say, do you mind working weekends? Oh, no. The first time they work one weekend and it's just like, I can't believe I got to work another weekend. Well, they asked you that from the beginning. If you already know that you don't want to work weekends, or you can't work on Wednesday for a certain obligation that you already have, be fair to yourself, and especially be fair to this employer. Since now we've spent a little time here, not much, but we figured out some of the logistics. Have you ever heard someone say you need to know yourself? Well, I'm going to tell you that you need to understand yourself. So what do I mean by that? Identify your strengths, your interests, your skills, and your accomplishments. Many job seekers, they already know exactly what type of work that they don't want to do. What they find difficult is saying the type of work that they actually want to do. So once you figure this out, you can begin to target jobs, industries, and employers that play to these strengths. So I have some resources to help identify your skills and match them to your jobs. Now, I'm going to give you a minute in case you need to get a pencil or get your little piece of paper together, because you might want to write these down. This will also be information that I will give to Jordan as well. So it's called Back to Work 50 Plus Virtual Career Network. Now, it's AARPfoundation.org/VCN. I'm going to say it one more time for you. AARP Foundation, all one word, .org/VCN. Another one, myskillsmyfuture.org. All one word. My skills with an S, myfuture.org. The next one, is My Next Move. All one word again, mynextmove.org. And then the last one, www.careeronestop.org/explore careers. All one word. So again, www.careeronestop.org/explore careers. You got that? Okay. Now, let's talk a little about marketing and getting those interviews. The infamous cover letter. So you probably already know that the cover letter typically goes in from the it goes in front of the resume to indicate the position that you are pursuing. I would say unless they don't ask for one, unless they specifically say no, no cover letter, please include a cover letter. Because like I said, that's part of an introduction. You're indicating the position that you're pursuing. It also where you heard about it and a bit of information about yourself. You notice I said a bit of information about yourself. It is tailored to the job that you are applying for. So include the skills, the experiences that you have that match this job description. Always, as I said earlier, include this cover letter unless the job posting specifically says otherwise. Now let's talk a little bit about composing that cover letter. Yes, thank you. I saw that somebody had put the websites that I've just given you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Composing your cover letter. So in your first paragraph, you jump right in it. You tell the employer what job you're applying for and, if applicable, who referred you. In the middle section, briefly describe your skills, show how you use your experiences in the new job, and say why you're applying. This is the chance to sell yourself. Also, describe major achievement. Use concrete details and cite examples. Like I said, it doesn't have to be long. You don't want to bullet point it though, but it gives you a little bit of an opportunity to say why you're so wonderful and why you should have this job. Be sure and repeat some of the keywords that you see in the job posting in your cover letter and in your resume, of course. But in the last paragraph, make sure that you always thank the employer and, well, this just makes sense, provide your contact information. You would not believe, and then you may, how many times that I have looked at job applications or resumes. It was not so much application because normally those are forms and people are filling out their name, address, and so forth. But even in cover letters, sometimes I have seen a lot where people didn't give you their contact information and you're thinking, well, now how do I think I'm going to call him? So make sure that you include and make sure that, if you give just double check your information and make sure that it's accurate. You definitely want to give them the right phone number. One of the things that you include on this is address it to a specific person, not just a title or a department, that to whom it may concern, that's been gone. So employ the active voice as well. So for example, say, I won an award versus saying I was awarded. Describe why you're uniquely qualified. Cite some relevant skills, experiences, and cite some accomplishments, but don't simply repeat your resume. Tell the employer something about yourself that may not be clear from your resume. That cover letter, a lot of times that opens up, it makes a difference between if that employer is really going to look at that resume or not. Some things that I think that are important to avoid. So I'm going to give you a few things that, now this is just me, and you may agree, tell me yes or no. What not to include in your cover letter. Generic language. So tailor your letter to the specific position. You don't need unnecessary words such as I'm writing to you or let me introduce myself. Just get to the point. Clear references. Do not give clear references to your age. That's not necessary. Rather than talk about your 30 or 40 years of experience, which is great, focus on your skills, how they were applied, and the outcomes as they relate to the position that you're seeking. You can talk about that 30 or 40 years of experience once you get the interview. It's not needed in your cover letter. Do not put salary requirements, of course, unless they say they want your salary requirements on the cover letter. Then well, it makes sense to do it, but otherwise do not. You save that discussion as well for the interview. So while we're talking about the cover letter, well, you need a resume. So give a resume that shows your accomplishments. A resume is not an end in itself. It's a tool to get the employer's attention. You need a well-written, up-to-date resume. You want to market yourself effectively. Some must-dos. Tailor or target your resume to the specific job that you're applying for. Don't send the same resume to hundreds of employers. Keep it to a maximum of 2 pages in most cases. Proofread it several times. One typo can send your resume to the trash. You don't want to be working for a newspaper and talking about your proofreader and then your resume is full of errors. I doubt that would happen, but still. Always include a cover letter, as we just said, always include a cover letter with your resume unless you're instructed not to. Some things, now we're telling you some things not to include. Well, here's some things that you might want to include. Your most relevant jobs within the last 15 years. Accomplishments, not just duties. So try to avoid phrases like responsible for or duties include. Results, you want to include results and you want to include the outcomes of those results. Quantify your achievements and use action verbs. For example, increase sales by 40%, expanded program, exceeded fundraising targets. Your skills and experience that are most relevant to the job that you're applying for. Include the specific computer skills that are mentioned in the job posting. If you have others, that's even more icing on the cake. But be sure that you include the specific skills that they're mentioning. Be sure to include your transferable skills from non-work settings, such as volunteering, especially if you have gaps in your work history. That's always a good filler if you've been doing some volunteer work. Be sure and use accomplishments in your resume. So accomplishments, which are also called achievements, they're different from abilities, they're different from your duties, and they're different from strengths. Accomplishments will show the specific actions you have taken in a particular situation, the skills and abilities that you use to meet a challenge, and the results are the outcomes that you achieve from such. Moving on, now you can also use your online presence to market yourself to employers. Chances are a recruiter will immediately search for you online if he or she is considering you for a job. So be careful what you're putting in there, because what pops up or what doesn't pop up during that search could help or hurt you. Investigate your online presence. You can search your name even to get started. So use good websites to promote yourself. There's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Those are profiles that are all important. They're important places where you can tell your story. Does anyone have any, I'm going to stop here because I'm just going on and on. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add? Or any questions or anything?
No questions at this time.
Okay. So there's job seekers. What I find, and that's including myself, job seekers, some, not all, that are 50 plus, sometimes can be reluctant to join Twitter or LinkedIn. But if you're seriously looking for a job these days, you'll learn to market yourself using those social media outlets. Employers want people who are comfortable online. They may check your profile on LinkedIn or browse your Facebook page before considering you for an interview. So saying that, I think you want to be careful what you put on what you put on your Facebook and what you put in LinkedIn. So I'm going to share some basic information how you could use them or how you should use them to tell your story. For LinkedIn, create a well-rounded profile. List details about your previous employers, your job titles, responsibilities, skills, and accomplishments. Ensure your profile picture, I'm going to say it again, ensure your profile picture is professional. Seek out endorsements of your skills from past colleagues. You can go to www.linkedin.com to sign up. For Facebook, make sure that you create a professional profile or scrub your current profile of anything inappropriate. Go to www.facebook.com to sign up. Then Twitter, create a handle. So that's Twitter talk for a username. So, and create a handle and profile. And then follow companies and industries that are related, that have related handles. This will demonstrate to your potential employer that you're interested, and that you're staying up to date on the latest news and trends in your field. Again, I'll end with you can go to www.twitter.com just to sign up for Twitter if you don't have that. Now we've done a cover letter. We've done the resume, excuse me. Now, next step is to nail that interview. To nail your interview, I think most of you already know that. You need to make sure you're prepared. Do your homework. Read the job description carefully. Check out the company websites for the latest news and developments, history, programs, and leadership. Pay attention to the company's mission statements and vision and learn their culture. Prepare a few questions to ask the interviewer throughout or at the end of the interview. Don't act desperate for the job, but show some enthusiasm and communicate how much you would enjoy the job. Dress the part. Make sure you show up to your interview in the appropriate attire. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know how many people. I know there's some people that actually are professional interviewers. They're just good. They can nail it every time. But those questions, they always have some of those questions that you think, oh my God, please don't ask me these questions. And what will they do every time? They'll ask you that main question that you just wish that they would not ask you. So I've got some examples of a few questions. but these will give you the opportunity to present yourself as a skilled, energetic worker that will bring a high value to the employer. So I love this one. Tell me about yourself. Well, I guess no one knows myself better than I. But sometimes I think we worry about what do they really want to know about me. So make sure that your answer is short and sweet. Stick to the experiences and goals that relate to the specific job for which you're applying. Resist the impulse, if you can, to talk about your grandkids or stress your years of experience. It's more important to talk about your skills and achievements than, that will show that you can deliver. So emphasize your flexibility and that positive attitude that you're bringing in there. This is a good time to, I don't know if you ever heard about it, but it's called that 30-second commercial. And what that 30-second commercial is, it's selling yourself. Take time just writing down a few things about yourself and get it in there in 30 seconds so that when someone says, tell me about yourself, you can say blah, 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 blah. And instead of them thinking, oh my God, she stumbled in the question, just asking about herself. So sometimes we have gaps in our resumes. So somebody may say, well, you haven't worked for a while. Why not? Well, you might have gaps in your employment for many reasons. Just be honest. Speak confidently about your experiences during those gaps. Maybe during those gaps, a lot of things could have happened. You left a job you just didn't like. And you could just say that, you don't have to say, well, I didn't like those folks at that job. There's ways to say it, but just be honest about it. And a lot of times, even when we have gaps in our employment, there's a lot of things that we've done in that time. So just tell the people, just be honest with them and just say, hey, I just didn't work for these years. Some of this could transfer to on-the-job skills. You just never know, depending on what job that you're applying for. So, for instance, if you were a caregiver, you managed complex financial issues. So, as a volunteer, you may have worked with a diverse group and you had flexible schedules. So, you can be creative, but be truthful. I don't know if this is my all-time favorite. No, this is not my all-time favorite. It's my all-time second to the favorite, I think. Aren't you overqualified for this position? I'm thinking, I can't see all your faces, but I'm sure a few of you are going, yeah, I've heard that before. So even though overqualified can be shorthand for old and expensive, it's important to stay positive. Express your enthusiasm for this job and your pride in your qualifications. Explain to them what makes you interested in this position at this particular point in your career, such as wanting to apply your skills to a new field or to achieve more flexibility and have a better work-life balance. Now, with technology being the way that it is, and sometimes people see a gray hair or whatever, and I call, like I even call my gray hair that I have, I just call those knowledge streaks. So I always just say I have plenty of knowledge streaks. So people will talk about, we have state-of-the-art technology. Would you be able to jump right in? Well, just show them that you are adaptable and tech savvy. Now, if you're not tech savvy, there's ways of, just explain to them, I may not know this, but I can definitely learn it. Give examples of projects that you've done that have required computer skills, and something that maybe you've worked with in the electronic media. Emphasize training that you've taken and keep your skills up to date. That's important. Now, Here's a tricky one. When people say, we don't have many employees your age, would that bother you? Well, I think it bothered me that they asked that, but since we're at an interview, emphasize your ability to work with the people of all backgrounds and all ages. You may want to mention working for a boss, maybe he had one that was younger than you, especially if that person has agreed to be, a reference for you. Explain that you think that your age would be an asset. You're eager to learn, and it doesn't matter who helps you. Describe your recent experiences, whether at work or any other situations where age diversity may be an asset. So remember, though, that federal law, it does bar employers from considering age in employment decisions. Though it's not illegal. Now, a lot of people think it's illegal to be asked your age. It's not. The question could be, though, a red flag about the employer's commitment to age diversity. But one thing, know your rights under the Age Discrimination in Employment Act. If you ever feel that you have been discriminated against as far as the working, your employment, or that you didn't get the position because of your age, there is a website. And here I go again, www.eeoc.gov. There's tons and tons of information about your Age Discrimination Act. And later on, I may be able to come back, and I have a great presentation about age discrimination with a lot of information, a lot of websites that if you are interested, just let Jordan know, and I can get that information to you. Now this is, remember before I said I had my second worst question. My first question that I just absolutely, I don't know if I just freeze up sometimes, or I just hate that when they ask you, tell me, what is your biggest weakness? Well, I'm thinking, didn't I come here to sell myself? Now you want me to tell you what my biggest weakness is? But this is a reverse invitation to toot your own horn. So do it with an answer that puts you in a good light. For example, I'm too detail oriented, but I work hard to control that. Keep it simple and then smile. When they ask you about salary requirements, you try to postpone that question until a job offer has been made. Prepare by knowing the going rate in your area. So there is a site, it's called salary.com. You can look that up just in case that question, like I said, go into these interviews prepared. So if you're going in for dog groomer, go to salary.com and look up what the going rate for a dog groomer is in your area. So, and if you don't know the range and the interviewer persists, just reply, well, what salary range are you working with? The interview may very well tell you. So those are some things that I think that can be helpful if you just think about those when you have your interview. And I believe with all my heart, if you guys are really looking, I just have a feeling that you are going to land your job. So that's what we're hoping for anyway. So is anyone out there, I'm just going to ask you guys a question. Is anybody out there currently looking for a job and you're finding it hard, or just are currently just looking for a job? If you want to share. Okay. So we've talked about your cover letter. We have talked about your resume. We've talked about your interview. So hopefully I've given you some information that is that you can take, you can use. I hope I've given you some things that you can write down, some great notes. But I also want to give you a couple of other sites from AARP. There's an AARP resume advisor, and they'll help you with your resume. They'll help your resume stand out. So it's they offer a free resume review that will help you highlight your skills as a professional by providing personalized and actionable feedback. So with that, it's an AARP.org/work/resume-advisor. There's also, we have an AARP Skills Builder for Work. This helps you gain an in-demand skills that could give you an edge in today's competitive job market. They have a couple of free courses, so you can choose you a free course to get you started. And that's a www.aarp.org/work/skills-builder. So one thing, when you're out looking for jobs, sometimes it seems like a lonely place to be, but remember, we're all in this together. It may not seem like it, but there's help out there for you. There's plenty of websites that you can refer to. If you have any questions or you need some sites, you can feel free to contact me. I'm going to give you my email address. It is tcjones@aarp.org. So I'd be glad to give you any of our websites that we have that I could help you with. I can't promise you. I mean, I don't. Unfortunately, people call me all the time. Do you have a job? No, I don't have that, but I can refer you to some places that possibly can help you. Besides the two that I just gave you, there's quite a few more places that we have some websites that we can give you. So at this time, I think that I have, I think I've talked, I'm looking at this, I've talked for 38 minutes straight. So I'm hoping that maybe somebody has some questions or you have some comments. If there's something you'd like to ask me, or if there's something that you felt like I didn't explain well, please speak up.
I have some questions, Teresa, if you don't mind.
Okay. No, I don't
Just
mind.
curious for your thoughts. So and some of this you talked about. So the first question, and this is something that we get here at the library a lot, is how you can, is there anything you could add or maybe avoid on your resume to, I'm trying to find out what to not show certain things or kind of make it ageless or anything like that. Anything to kind of avoid any age bias or ageism.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. I would be very careful when you're doing your resume. One of the things, like we said, don't put in there like, I did this for 40 years or 30 years. Just go back. This is very important. A lot of times we're very proud of what we've done, and we have reason to be. But normally, an employer doesn't want you to go past 15 years. And some employers, you'll find, they'll say, I just want to know what you did in the last 5, 6, 7 years. I think one of the things too, with a lot of people that are 50 plus, we came up in that era of you got a job and you stayed at that job and you worked at that job. And that's not what it, and these days I notice it's not the same. People, they move around a lot, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's like we said, the same, the workforce is it's different than it was a decade ago. But be careful just of putting things like that, I did this for this amount of years. Just go back 15 years. And that right there, you normally don't put your birth date on your resume. That's not needed.
Thank you. Yes, that's something we get here. Little things like that, or changing the AOL email address to a Gmail. Or
well, that's
yes,
that. You're right.
Yeah,
because people aren't using AOL anymore.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, some are, but yeah. I try to be more relevant, but that's one of the things we were talking about when you're looking at when you're talking about being not necessarily tech savvy, but just staying with the times. So just having an email that is more common, like you said, and not the AOL, Gmail or att.net, Comcast. There you go.
Yeah, and like you said, staying up on the like you mentioned, LinkedIn. You could add a LinkedIn profile link to your, that's one way to keep up to date for now. It might change in a few years, but all right. Someone does have a question here. Oh, we have a couple questions. Do you have recommendations on who to approach as references if you're trying to make a career shift?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Do you have any recommendations on who to approach for references if you're trying to make a career shift?
Well, if pardon me, I've always been very fortunate when I have left a position. I've always been fortunate enough to have my boss, my employer, give me a reference. But if not, when you have that, you have maybe other people that you've worked with that can give you a reference. Or, I spoke about this earlier too. If you're doing volunteer work or something, that's another. Have people that are that are in charge of the volunteer organization. They can write you a reference. Those are, I think those are two good starts right there. If you're doing any volunteer, if you have done any volunteer work, have the people that you've volunteered with do a reference. Or if you're not comfortable with having an old boss doing a reference for you, maybe one of your coworkers can do it. There's nothing wrong with having a coworker write a reference for you. Who knows your work ethic besides your boss, but a lot of times your work ethic better than a coworker, someone who you've worked very closely with.
Okay, another question here. What to do about the gap between the job for the last 15 years you mentioned and the graduation date? Do not list the graduation date.
And that can be tricky with your graduation date. If you have your master's, like let's say you're graduated from college, your master's degree, your bachelor's degree or whatever, a lot of times, that's when you put that in there, you can put where you graduated from, your degree. You don't have to put the date in there. I think it used to be a thing right then. You said I graduated in 1977 with a blah, blah, blah. Now you can just put, you've got a BA, MA, PhD, whatever it is, and the school. You don't have to list that. If they ask you, then that's a conversation. But I'm not going to say I know most times people are just looking at your education. They don't really care. A lot of people don't care when you did it. They just care that you have it. If they're asking for a bachelor's degree, they just want to see that you have a bachelor's degree, especially in that field. The gap, if you have a big gap, depending on what your gap is for, like you did caregiving duties. Like you said, highlight that. I did caregiving duties for such and such amount of time. And then tell some of the things you did in that caregiving duty. I mean, seriously, it may sound silly, but it's true. If you have, and I'm speaking from experience on this one, if you have a few years of the gap because you were doing caregiving duty, which I did have that with my mother, I was able to, I took care of my mother's bills. I took care of everything for my mother. And I put some of those skills down there as experiences that I had. And I think right there, you're showing, you're handling someone's finances. So what was I? I was her personal banker. And that it's not stretching it. It's not sounding silly. It's not making up something. I used that. That was one of my jobs. I did caregiving for X amount of years, and I explained the duties. I just wasn't being paid for it, but it was still a job.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, and this is something we help people with here at the library. I think if you focus on making it positive and professional, you could list that. So were you doing any community engagement volunteering, as Teresa mentioned? List that out. That's an achievement. That was something productive and positive. And if you have that option, if not, I would consider thinking about what I could do in the meantime, and like you said, maybe leave the year off. So if you did get a computer science degree, a certain year, what have you been doing in the meantime? Because like Teresa touched on, you want to tailor it to the employer and what they're looking for ultimately. So are you qualified to do that? And how are you keeping up on your skills?
And I will say another thing too, if you've got time, excuse me, if you have time and you're looking for a position, or if you think, I'm just getting kind of tired of being at home, I'm retired, blah, 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 I want to maybe go to work next year or something. In the meantime, take some computer classes. That never can hurt. You may decide you want to, or take some online classes. You decide that, I've always wanted to work in a florist. Take some online classes about, working in one of those places. It just depends. If you want to go to work for, a lot of people, I think a lot of us, if we have retired and we've decided we want to go back into the workplace, I think a lot of times those are the jobs. Those jobs that we're looking for are jobs that we say I don't mind doing that. I kind of want to do that now. You can be a little bit more choicey than before. So find something that interests you though. One of the things you do not want to do is don't go back to a job that you do not want to do. If you want to be, my thing is, if you want to be a Walmart greeter, if that's what you've always wanted to, not always, but if that's what you've always wanted to do, or that's what you wanted, that looks like something I want to do in the next 5 years or something, then that's what you do. But don't take a job that you already know when you're filling out the papers. I really don't want to do this. Why am I doing this? Do something that you think that you at least halfway want to or may enjoy. But don't worry about those gaps and I tell people all the time, I don't think you really have to worry about those gaps. Somebody may say to you, like you said, they may say, oh, I see you haven't worked for the last 5 or 6 years. Be honest why you haven't worked for those 5 or 6 years. You may have been taking care of, like I said, you may have been doing caregiving for a family member. You may have a daughter or a son that was working and they needed grandma or grandpa to take care of their kids, to help with that. Because daycare, as we know, it can be super expensive. Put that in there. You had a daycare, and you're not lying. You're not saying that you had a daycare with 100 kids. You're talking about, that you took care of these children, and then tell what you do. List those job experiences. Yeah, I say own it.
I agree. We just helped someone here at the library. They weren't getting any job interviews, so we added that. They were stay-at-home parents, so we added those years, and it really highlighted their transferable skills as well. So they were also part of the parent-teacher organization, so that highlighted communication, organization, things like that. And they started getting, and it may or may not work for everyone, but they did start getting interview invitations because we filled that gap. And so I don't know. I hope we answered your questions, but we say own it. We say there's a way you can address it, whether it's in your resume or your cover letter.
That's right.
And we feel free to share more questions. I'm going to ask one more question, kind of end it on a positive note. Is there any way to use your age as an asset if you are 50 plus?
Yeah. You know, and I'm kind of stuttering around this, and it's because some people are like, well, you know, my thing is, we've been people that are 50 plus, you have a lot of experience. Well, I would think most of you have a lot of experience behind you. And this is not throwing, as the kids say, this is not throwing shade towards anyone that is younger. It's just saying that we've already had our kids. So we're not going to be out on maternity leave, which is not a bad thing, but I'm just saying, I sound like Seinfeld, don't I? It's not a bad thing, but still that we're not out on maternity leave. Normally we're more settled. We're not coming in and we're mad because our boyfriend is doing this or that or the other, or our girlfriend, blah, blah, blah. You know, just a lot of things that we remember when, you know, we were in our 20s and 30s, some of the things that, some of the excuses even that we use for not being at work, we don't have that anymore. And I think, and we offer stability and we offer experience. I say walk in there with your head, you know, held up high, and and show your confidence. I think there's a lot to say for people that are 50 plus. Yeah. Own it. That's another thing I say, own it.
All right, any more questions for Teresa or for us? As we mentioned here at the library, we help people with their resumes, job applications, cover letters. So if you have any more one-on-one advice or suggestions, you can come into the library here. I'm going to share my screen. Oops. Well, thank you, Teresa, for your time and sharing those insights with us. I have my contact information here on the screen if you want to get a hold of Teresa. And we also included Teresa's email address in the chat here. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat. Let's see here. So thank you all for joining us for tonight's webinar. So our next career webinar will be Networking 101. Our business librarian, Madeline Wolski, will join me for a discussion on networking basics and just making it your own experience. And that will be on Tuesday, December 7th at 10 a.m. And we hope you'll consider attending more webinars. I have the December ones listed here, but we have a lot more related to our business series, our technology series, crafty adults, writers workshops. We have a new legal series as well. Just visit our events calendar, champaign.org/events for more information. And you could also sign up to receive library updates by subscribing to our newsletter. You just visit champaign.org/news. And once again, if you didn't catch my contact information, you could email me at librarian@champaign.org and it will get to me one way or the other. And I don't see any questions right now. Let me turn on my video. Thank you again, Teresa, for joining us. We're hoping to host Teresa in person here at the library. I'm not sure when yet, but maybe next year. But I don't see any further questions here. Let's see.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
You had mentioned a website. You said to sign up for your sign up to find out what you guys are doing at the library.
Yes, it is Champaign. Here, I'll put it in the chat here. Champaign.org/news. And yeah, you can get monthly updates. We also have a career email that I sent out. So if you visit that, you should be able to connect with us and get the latest news and updates.
Great. I'm going to sign up for that.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. I hope everyone enjoys their evening. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.